Here is the first chess trap to win just in 7 moves. The game starts with e4, e5, knight f3 attacks the pawn, knight c6 defends the pawn, and now white plays bishop to c4, eyeing the weak f7 pawn. And now here you will give a free pawn to your opponent by playing knight to d4. White will happily capture this pawn, thinking that now he has double attack on this weak f7 pawn. But instead of protecting this pawn, you can now play the shocking queen to g5, forking white's pieces. If white captures on f7 with his knight, thinking that he is forking your pieces, then you can capture the g2 pawn with an attack on this rook as well as this central e4 pawn. If rook moves to f1, then you can capture the e4 pawn with a check. If white blocks the check with his queen, then he will lose his queen. That is why he might just make the mistake of blocking this check with his bishop. But that immediately loses because black can now give a smothered mate by playing knight to f3. Here is the second chess trap. Game starts with e4 and c5. We are seeing the Sicilian defense. And now you can play knight to c3, knight c6, knight g to e2. And now black might play e5. But with that move, black has just weakened his d5 square. So white can now immediately take advantage of this hole in the black's territory by playing knight to d5. Black might attack this centralized knight with knight g to e7. But then you can simply add extra defense to this knight by playing knight e to c3. So if black captures this knight, then you can recapture back with the other knight. And now here black played a6, trying to control this important square since it's been attacked by both of these pieces. And here white played e4 in order to stop the b5 move by black. And here black made the mistake of playing g6. So white immediately checkmated black's game by playing knight to f6. Yes, it's a smothered mate. And in this game, the white side was played by the world champion Viswanathan Anand. Let's look at the third deadly chess trap. So the game starts with e4, e5, knight f3 attacks the pawn, knight c6 defends it, bishop c4 eyes the f7 pawn, and now black plays knight to f6 attacking white's e4 pawn, and now you can attack the center with d4. And here your opponent might play knight takes e4, thinking that he is eyeing this f2 pawn as well as he has got a free pawn. But that's a mistake because now you can open up the center with d takes e5, and now the most common move played over here is bishop to c5. Black thinks that he is double attacking this weak f2 pawn and he has a very good game. But white can now here play the powerful queen to d5, forking black's pieces. Not only is the queen attacking this undefended knight, but most importantly, this queen is threatening to checkmate on the f7 square. If your opponent plays bishop takes f2 check, then you can simply move the king up, and now he cannot protect both of his pieces, plus this checkmate threat is far more important, so your opponent will most likely castle over here, and now you can easily capture this free knight over here and you are up a piece. Let's go back. So instead of capturing this pawn with the bishop, if the opponent directly castles over here, then you get a free knight again and you are up in material. Let's go back and let's assume that your opponent is really dumb and makes the mistake of capturing this pawn with his knight, then you can simply finish off black's game with queen takes f7 checkmate. So let's look at a cool chess trap in the bird's opening. So the game starts with f4, knight f6, knight f3 and now d6, b3. White is planning to develop his dark squared bishop on this diagonal, and now you can attack the center with e5. White is getting a free pawn over here, so he will most likely capture this e5 pawn. So f takes e5, d takes e5 and now knight takes e5 and white is up a pawn. But now you will attack this knight with your bishop. Knight will most likely go back to the f3 square, and now you will play a sneaky move knight to g4, eyeing the h2 pawn as well as this f2 square over here. White will likely get uncomfortable with this move and will most probably end up playing h3 in order to kick your knight, but that immediately ends his game because now you can checkmate white's game by playing bishop to g3. Now let's look at this cool famous trap. It starts with e4, e5, bishop to c4 eyeing the weak f7 pawn. Black plays d6, now you play knight to f3. You have got both of your minor pieces out, and now here black will try to pin your knight with bishop to g4. But you simply focus on developing your other knight and you play knight to c3. And now if black here makes a mistake of playing g6, then you can shock your opponent by sacrificing your queen and playing knight takes e5. Knight takes e5 is a brilliant move. Yes, you are offering your queen for free, and if black captures this free queen, then that would end his game, because now you can play bishop takes f7 check. The only place that the king can go to is the e7 square, and now knight d5 is a checkmate. Let's look at this one. The game starts with e4, e5, knight f3 attacks the pawn, knight c6 protects it, bishop c4 eyes the weak f7 pawn, and now here you can play f5, directly attacking the center. Black might defend the center with d3, and now you can play bishop to c5, eyeing the weak f2 pawn. And here black might play knight to g5, thinking that his knight is guarded by this bishop over here, and his knight and this bishop over here are together targeting this weak f7 square. But instead of playing any defensive move over here, you will play f4, closing this line for this bishop to protect this knight. So white's knight is under attack by this queen over here. So he has to move this knight. So white here most likely will move the knight to the f7 square, thinking he's forking black's pieces. But now you will surprise your opponent with the move queen to h4, threatening to mate on the f2 square. And believe it or not, a lot of beginners here do not see this checkmate threat and make the mistake of capturing this rook over here, due to which they immediately lose the game after queen takes f2 checkmate. Let's see an amazing checkmate trap in the Pirc's defense. So the game starts with e4, e5, d4, attacking the center. Black defends the center with d6, and now here you will capture the e5 pawn, and black might just play queen to e7. The idea is if you capture one more pawn, then he can capture this pawn with a check to the king. But you will play e takes d6 anyway. Black will happily capture the e4 pawn with a check. You will block with bishop to e2, and now black will rejoice capturing this free g2 pawn over here, which then attacks the trapped rook over here. So black plays queen takes g2, but that's a mistake, because you have a stronger attack over here, because you can now play d takes c7, and here if black makes the blunder of capturing this rook, then you can checkmate black's game with queen to d8. Let's look at another one. So the game starts with e4, e5, and now you'll play the king's gambit. If black captures the pawn, then you should simply develop your kingside knight. Black might play d5, attacking your center, and you can guard the center with knight to c3. If he captures the pawn, you capture back with your knight. And now here black might play bishop to g4, pinning your knight to the queen, but you simply move the queen to the e2 square, getting it on the same file as the opponent's king. If black makes a mistake of capturing this knight with his bishop, then you can checkmate black's game by playing knight to f6. It's a double check from the white's pieces, and black king cannot defend it. Do like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're really enjoying it. And now moving on to the last trap. So the game starts with d4, you play knight to f6, c4. We are seeing the Indian game, and now you will gambit a pawn with e5. This is the Budapest gambit. White will happily capture this pawn, because he is now attacking your knight and has won a tempo. And you will now move your knight to the e4 square, and this will make white very uncomfortable. So he might play f3 in order to attack your knight. But now you can play bishop to b4 check. If white blocks the check with bishop d2, then now you can play queen to h4 check. You are attacking white's king from all the sides. The only move that he can play over here is g3, but now you will sacrifice your knight on g3, and if white makes a mistake of capturing back your knight, then you can finish off white's game with queen takes g3 checkmate. Join to the channel's membership program if you want to become a pro at chess. And now here is the question of the day for you. How can black checkmate white's game? Let me know your answers in the comments box, and I'll see you in the next video.